Now let's take a look at the GPU memory system. So the GPUs are slightly different. Here we're going to take a look at the same program that we're running, but in a GPU we don't have all that fancy hardware to analyze the program. So we're just going to look at the next instruction. We've got a bunch of processing units in there. We can do additions and loads and stores, but we don't have any way to analyze all these instructions and figure out which ones we can do at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and take the first instruction and start running it. And you can see this in the picture over here, that we don't have a lot of extra stuff on the processor for doing all this fancy analysis. So when we go ahead to start running, take our first instruction, we're going to do our addition, we're going to do our second addition, then we're going to do our load and store. Now remember on the CPU we were doing these at the same time. So now we get to our load store, and as we said, it's going to take a long time to get over here to memory. So if it takes a long time to get over to memory, remember we don't have all this fancy stuff on our GPU to help us out, what are we going to do about this? Well, we're not going to add more cache. We have very little cache on the GPU, and it's going to take a long time to get to memory, so we do the obvious thing. We give up. We say, hey, this program here, it's stuck. It's going to take a really long time to get the data back from memory, so there's nothing we can do about it. And this is what the GPU does. It gives up. It puts the program over on the side here and says, sorry, I can't run this program for a long time until I get the data back from memory. Then we go off and we get some other work. So this was the white program. I'll go ahead and run the red program. Now, how does that work? Well, if you remember what a GPU is doing, it's processing all these pixels. So this over here was the program for the white pixel. Now I'm going to go get the program for this red pixel over here. Okay, that's just another one here. And I've got so many of these pixels I'm processing at the same time that I can always find more work. So the GPU goes and finds this more work here, and it starts going ahead and processing that work in the same way until that program gets stuck on this load instruction. Now it needs to wait for memory. So what do I do here? Well, I give up again. I take this program, I put it over on the side and say, sorry, can't run this program until I get the data back from memory, and I go and grab some other work. So here's a yellow program. Where'd the yellow program come from? Well, remember, I've got lots and lots of work here, so I just grab another pixel. So I go ahead and keep processing that one, and at some point in the future, I've got all these programs that are sitting here waiting, but the first memory load is ready. So when the first memory load is ready, I can go ahead and put that first white program back in the processor. I can bring the data in, and I can keep going on that program because I finally got my data back. So this process is very different from what we saw on the CPU. So I've got lots and lots of parallel programs to run. On the GPU, we tried to find parallel instructions that we could do at the same time. Sorry, the CPU. I've got lots of hardware to get throughput. So I can run lots of these things at the same time, and I've got special hardware that lets me keep track of these when I'm not running them. And what that means is that as long as there's enough work, I get high throughput. So the key thing for getting good performance on a GPU is you have to have enough work that when some other parts of your program are waiting on memory, you have other work to do. Now notice here, this is high throughput. Each one of these programs may take a really long time to run. Because remember, I started running this program, then I gave up when I got to the load. I waited for hundreds of cycles to get the data back, not running that program anymore, and in the meantime I ran other programs. So this works great for a GPU because you don't care about how quickly you get each pixel, you care about getting lots of pixels on average. So GPU is very much focused on throughput.